I had intended to make this a short little video where I would talk for a couple minutes and then get right into model building, and then that turned out to be a huge headache, and this video ended up being a lot longer than I intended. So, move those off. If you're not interested in hearing me ramble about, the year and stuff I've done and all that, you can just skip this next video, which will hopefully be out within a day or two. I'm going to start working on it immediately after this. But that video is going to be all about building some models and fixing some stuff up. But since I got to talk, I figured it would be better to have something to do with my hands instead of just tapping and shifting around on the table here. So, doing some more ramen. Gonna do some slurping. I'm gonna talk about 2020, because what a goddamn year 2020 was, huh? So, overall, as far as growth and improvement and all that, I would say 2020 was a good year for me. Built up my social media presence a little bit. Made some new friends, found some new people who have been very inspirational. Yeah, so I mean, overall, that was good. I made a big effort to try and improve things. Like you might notice that this recording has a lot less hiss to it, a lot less background noise, and that's because I've been spending the last couple days trying to figure out how to stop that from happening. And hopefully this is overall better quality and easier to listen to, because I'll be honest, these videos have not been very good. I'm surprised anybody watches them at all. 2020 was going to be a year where I was going to be going to and working at a lot of conventions, doing table work with sugar pucks, and it wasn't until a little ways through the year that kind of came to the decision that I should actually get back to making stuff with resin so I could sell it. Because I had done that before. I had sold, goblin slayers and sitting gondolas and a couple other small things that were honestly kind of amateur. But honestly, I was just starting. I'm still very much an amateur. I've just gotten a little bit better. But when I was doing resin stuff before, wasn't entirely sure what I was doing. I had tried to learn what I could off of YouTube. But some of the mistakes I was running into was an unwillingness to step up my game, so to speak. Oop. And this guy's actually a fairly good example of that. I've been going back through and trying to repair. I'm going to overall just touch up and improve this dude, because you can see with this guy, well, for one, the seam line is very bad. I've also got various air bubbles and textural issues, and a lot of that just comes from, I don't know how well you can see him. This camera's not great. But you got little textural issues where you get these micro bubbles in the resin. It's also micro bubbles in the mold, and overall the final product isn't quite that great. I think those are both problems that could have been solved if I had bit the bullet and picked up a vacuum chamber a lot earlier. I was way more intimidated with that and not so sure if the cost was worth it. And long story short, it's worth it. But this was a year that I decided that I wanted to try and return to working on stuff like that. I wanted to do more gondolas, and I actually ended up sculpting some various new gondolas in the process. And then the last one, although this isn't the original sculpt, was a mini gondola. Just kind of became the perfect piece for experimenting and practicing and, learning mold making all over again. And when I was first making these, I was getting a lot of the same problems I was getting with this guy, where I would get big air bubbles, or I would get air trapped in there, or I would get textural issues where you would get very small little micro bubbles kind of all along the surface. And it was Sugar Pucks who kind of encouraged me to work a little harder and to try some new things. And after I taught her how to do some basic mold making stuff, she wanted to get deeper into it, and so convinced me to bite the bullet on the pressure pot. Turns out it wasn't that expensive, so there's that. And the overall quality improvement. Just go back to this guy. You can see there's globs of resin on these various areas. And what I was doing when I was first making these and selling these was I would cast them, I would try and make them as good as possible, and then if there were any issues, I would go back in and I would patch up all of those things with little extra tiny batches of resin, and then go back in and resculpt and resand and more or less take a second pass at the entire sculpture. And not the best way to do things. Very time consuming, and it kind of makes the quality inconsistent, and it's way more work and effort. And that kind of goes back to stuff I've talked about before, where if you take the time to do it right the first time, you end up saving yourself so much more work in the long run. And it may be very annoying, and it may be very time consuming and very stressful to do it that way, but at the same time, it's going to be way more stressful when you have, 20, 30 castings and each and every one needs repair work. Or you're going to keep doing castings over and over and over and over, and you're going to get one good one for every 10 bad ones, and it's something that would be easily solved if, you just do it right the first time. Just take the time, be patient, and it's entirely worth it. And that was something I kind of had to learn the hard way. Now, 2 years ago, when I was doing resin casting stuff and teaching myself mold making and getting into the hobby and so on, I was unemployed at the time, and that meant I had the free time to work on these things, but not necessarily the money, not so much the space. I had to really carve out this current workspace. Then I started a full-time job, and I told myself at first, like, okay, I'll just do both. I'll do work, and then I'll come home, and I'll do a bunch of mold making and sculpting and cosplay and whatever. And I just don't have enough energy for that. Now, the thing that changed this year was Corona. Man, that really fucked up my year, for better and worse. Quick aside, one of the conventions I was going to go to this year, which I try to go to every year, is Gen Con in Indianapolis. It's a fantastic convention, one of the best ones I've ever seen. A little pricey, but that cost goes into making sure the conventions actually run very nicely. And for the first time ever, I had landed a hotel reservation 1 block away from the convention center. And the street in between the convention center and my hotel was the street where they park all of the awesome food trucks. So that was going to be great. And then Corona happened, and then it kept happening, and then everything got canceled. So where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so that's the worst. I'm still currently working my full-time job, and it's one of those essential jobs apparently, and our hours got cut. We were doing all right for a little while, and then just gradually stuff slowed down to the point where we had to cut our hours and then cut it a little bit more. And so I had a little bit of extra time and energy, which gave me an excuse to actually start sort of hunkering down and working on stuff. And in the long run, that turned out to be a good thing, because it pushed me towards both doing a better job with my mold making and learning all kinds of new stuff with pigments and mica powders and glitters and all that stuff. I mostly blame Sugar Pucks for that, because she was the one who pushed me to start messing with that, and it turned out to be a ton of fun. And that led to making a huge variety of dudes. Where'd they go? Here's actually my B-grade tub. So I ended up with all these different colors and all these different types and textures, and Sugar Pucks helped me do the polishing on them, so we could do the crystal clear ones, so you can kind of see through them and do some neat stuff with that. And goes back. And that led to me doing the blind bags, which kind of brings me to the last month, at least, where I started selling stuff online. And I was going to be selling stuff at a convention, which was the initial plan. which is why I wanted to do the blind bags. I figured they'd be a cool, nice little thing to just, sell as an impulse buy at conventions, and it wouldn't take up a ton of table space. And then that convention got canceled too. That was going to be last week, in fact. And yeah, Con Alt Delete just didn't happen. They were pushing their luck a little bit, and then the whole city went on lockdown again, and it can't be helped. So instead, I went back to Etsy, which is where I was doing my business before, and I sold a bunch of gondolas, and with a few exceptions, which I feel very bad for not having any way of doing anything about, all of them have arrived. There's a few that went out weeks ago that are still sitting in transit or set to arriving late, and I feel very bad about that. But there's nothing I can do. It's in the Postal Service's hands now, and well, shit, it was Christmas a few days ago, and everybody's at home, so everybody's ordering everything through the mail, and it just can't be helped. Yeah, that was like doing the mini gondolas, doing the blind bags. I've definitely felt like I've been posting about that a little too much and not working on enough other stuff, but it's a time-consuming project. However, that did lead me, grab one of these, lead me to getting to do things like designing my little bag toppers and getting to do the gear grinder stickers. That's from U Printing, that's from Sticker Mule. Both cool companies. They delivered much faster than estimated. That's what I'm looking for. So yeah, I got to try a bunch of stuff that I haven't gotten to do. I got to experiment with packaging and sort of building a style and a look to my stuff, which is something I've never really done before. I usually just threw it in, some bubble wrap, threw it in a box and sent it out. What was the thing? Talking with my mouth full. Petting cats. So yeah, got to do a bunch of new stuff. And I'm very thankful to everyone who bought my stuff and who ordered from me and who was excited and eager to see when I would start selling stuff again. And that actually pushed me towards starting to work on sitting gondolas again, because a lot of people want those. And I'm hoping I can do these a lot better next time, because before it was a very time-consuming process. And let's put it this way, if I were less stupid when I originally made them, I would have saved myself a lot of work and been able to produce those much more easily. But I was stupid. And so I made them in a way that made more work for myself, and it goes back to the stuff I was talking about before. Alright, so I guess that brings us to the future. The plan right now is to more or less stay the course, keep making little dudes, sculpting them, messing with resin casting. I want to try and revisit stuff kind of a little bit more complex, which is why I'm redoing the Goblin Slayer and seeing if I can overall improve that and then make better castings from that. Might actually be breaking this guy into two pieces so I can cast the figure and the base separately, which should alleviate a bunch of problems. But there's also a list of stuff that I've got that I've been wanting to sculpt for a while that isn't gondolas, but even still, I'm also working on that dude who I've been messing with for a while and trying to fine-tune. It's almost kind of got the look I want, but I keep looking at him and thinking, is he kind of crooked looking? Is this all right? I don't know. I'll mess with that later. But as for YouTube and Twitter and all that, I've got no delusions of exploding. I'm just gonna keep making weird videos when I feel like it, and just post them out the stuff I'm working on or stuff I want to make. With any luck, there will be conventions in 2021, and I will be working tables and selling stuff at some point. So you might get to see me that way. But there is also Gen Con, and one sec. I'm not usually a fan of the veggies. I don't really like leafy greens, but this stuff is very tasty. We will deal with that later. Anyways, so yeah, but the plan is if there's a Gen Con this year, if it actually happens, I want to attend, and if I can, I want to run a game I've been working on. Back in 2020, well, back earlier this year, I suppose, I was kind of waffling back and forth and like, do I work on it? Do I try and get it ready? Do I try and do the playtest haul? Oh, I already bought a badge. And I was just never really made a decision. And then Gen Con got canceled anyway, so it kind of became a moot point. So I think for this year, now that I have the opportunity, now that I've been working on my game a lot more, and it's in slightly better condition than it was before, slightly more playable, I do want to go ahead and run something at Gen Con. I think that'd be fantastic. I've done volunteer games before where I've volunteered for Crafty Games and run some stuff for them, but never attended Gen Con as somebody with a game to playtest with random people. And I'll talk about that at some other point. Kind of unrealistic at this point to say that I will have, get that out of there, that I will have a document or a book or anything ready to show before the end of the year. But once I get something set up with that, I will make some videos about it and start talking about that at some point. Got some plans for some other videos too. Stuff about RPGs and board games and video games. Been catching up on my video games lately, playing a lot of Yakuza Like a Dragon, and that game is just fantastic. It's just a masterpiece of a game. Needs a few tweaks to be, maybe best RPG I've played in a while, but still just amazing. But yeah, so I've got some other stuff I want to make videos on, but I also want to start doing more models again, because I've got a handful. Hi, kitty. Got a handful of Gunpla and other stuff that I have not built. I've got some figures I want to carve and sculpt. Don't mess up my stuff. For some other stuff. You are just knocking everything over. Go on. Stop begging for attention. But yeah, got some stuff I want to revisit, and I think that kind of dovetails nicely into what the next video is going to be about. I had forgotten which video I had mentioned this in. I intended to work on this a long time ago, but I want to do a repair job on this kit, and I'll talk about that more in the next video I intend to make. I'm going to start working on this right away, but this was something I bought and built a long time ago, and I want to also just kind of step up my skills with model building, and I want to build more models, and I want to kind of feel better about my ability to do that. So this was something I put off for a while, and it kind of dovetails nicely into... Did I already say dovetail? I may have. Dovetails into this, which is another LBX kit, which was one of the first videos I did, was just me building the LBX Nightmare. And the AX00, if I'm not mistaken, was originally a... was either a pre-order or a promo only special kit that they gave away when the games first came out on PSP. And I was able to pick this up for like $12, and I was actually able to also grab a couple of other LBX kits, also fairly cheap. I don't think I paid more than like $15 for these, which was super cool to actually come across them. They've even got like the branding on them and stuff. Because for a while, the LBX models were completely out of production, or at least some of them were. So you would go looking for some of these online, and one of the only comments I ever received was asking if I would do the LBX Triton. And when I went looking around online for that, I ended up finding it for like $90. It's still fairly expensive if you go looking around on Amazon. So when I started finding these for a decent price again, I had to grab them. I enjoy building these kits. They're simple kits, but they're super cool. There's some RPG sort of elements to them. The game is actually really fun too, if you've ever played it on 3DS. Haven't played any of the PSP ones, but they were never localized. Nonetheless, all of that and all of this sort of ties together, and I'll talk about that more in the other video. But I think I've rambled enough, and I'm out of noodles. So don't really know where I was going with this. It was not nearly as structured as I wanted it to be, but I think I said everything I want to say. Thank you for following me and watching me and buying my stuff and showing interest in the things I'm doing. It it really does mean a great deal to me. And stay tuned for more. There's going to be more videos. There's going to be more stuff. Who knows what 2021 holds? But I would at least like to do more stuff in 2021, and I hope you will come watch me do it. So, see you in the next video then.